Go and check out the 7 oracles.
Times and began conference play just 1 and 2. They've won 10 of the last 13 games. Coach Greg Gard says much of the growth has been a result of improved leadership.
I think the improvement comes from them auto-correcting and self-policing, so to speak, and when you get internal team-led leadership, it's and corrections and adjustments and things. That's no, when you got a good team, when coaches say it's not the first time they've heard it, they've already talked about it themselves. So that's always a good sign.
Wisconsin enters the night 11-5 in Big Ten play. Oregon 3-13. The Ducks beat the Badgers in Madison last year in their lone meeting. Tip tonight is set for 10 o'clock. Meanwhile, the Bucks also in action tonight to take on Cleveland in the second game of a back-to-back. Milwaukee enters the night having won 7 of their last 10 games, sitting just a game and a half out. Final spot in the play-in tournament.
Every child deserves a fair shot at a bright future. That's why Save the Children Head Start administers Head Start programs in rural America. We leveled the playing field early, helping children start school strong, stay strong, and unlock their full potential. Because education is the best path out of poverty. Learn more at savethechildren.org/Head Start.
Well, the NFL Combine continues in Indianapolis. A first group of players spoke with the media today. That included Wisconsin edge rusher Mason Reiger. He's one of 2 former Badgers in Indy, along with wide receiver Vinny Anthony. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
All right, welcome. It's day number 2 here at the NFL Scouting Combine. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. A rousing edition of the Bill Michaels Show earlier today, if I do say so myself. A couple heavy hitters, some NFL play-by-play guys. Paul Allen, voice of the Minnesota Vikings, was on. I thought Dalton Wasserman was awesome. Lindsey Rhodes was excellent, as always. I know Mike Clemens sat down for a couple of segments. That was juicy, always entertaining, always informative. So it's been a really packed week of football talk so far, and it's only Wednesday, so it's going to keep getting better. Matthew Coller, Purple Insider, who's been on the show from time to time to talk any Packers-Vikings stories or NFC North things, is going to join us at the table in just a couple of minutes, so that's coming up. I want to talk about some baseball stuff tonight because the Brewers are playing right now. I'm not overly, to be honest, I'm not overly invested in anything related to spring training, individual performances, or game results. I did a hit with Brian and Gene on Rock Mornings on Tuesday, and Simpson's like, well, what do you care about? Do you care about how the games go? Do you care about individual performance? I'm like, honestly, I don't really care about any of it. Just have everybody get to the season healthy, because we've seen guys with brilliant springs not be able to take it into the season. And not just Vinny Capra, like we all saw that coming, but Christian Yelich, right, would have an amazing spring training. It's like, man, he's going to hit the ground running this year. It's like, hey, buddy, you give it to Memorial Day, and then maybe he'll start to then maybe he'll turn the corner. But I do want to talk about spring training. Bryce Trang has 2 home runs today, including a grand slam. So I want to use that just kind of as a jumping off point to talk about Bryce Trang and a couple other Brewers. And I swear, a Cubs blogger, you might know if you're perpetually online like myself, Brett Taylor, he was Bleacher Nation, wrote an incredible, I won't even call it a piece, I'll just say wrote an incredible story about this Brewers video they posted. It looks like Jacob Mizorowski is throwing an apple off of Cooper Pratt's head, like that scene from Monty Python. He shoots the apple and then zooms out and the guy's covered with arrows. Very funny. It's one of the best things I've ever read. So we're going to have a little fun with that later on in the show as well. I do want to start with the combine itself. Now, on top of there being a bajillion members of the NFL media here and all of the teams, and there's a scout and there's a GM and there's a coach and there's the reporter and all of the flagship stations, Paul Allen, Jeff Joniak for the Bears, the Vikings here today. Bill had the play-by-play, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Bengals. So there's that thing, but there is also the draft prospects are here. All of the defensive linemen and edge rushers were going this morning, speaking at the podium. They're going through their medicals. They're interviewing with teams. They're going to work out later this week. And of course, the Badgers have, a proud program like the Badgers, long history of putting lots of players into the NFL. A long list of players who are at the combine this week for Wisconsin. Let me pull up the full list because I want to make sure we don't miss anyone. Mason Reiger, I want to play you some of that audio. Vinny Anthony's going to be here later in the week, but hold on. I want to pull up the full list. I have it here. Mason Reiger, Vinny Anthony, and others. Who are the other? Okay, Mason Reiger, Vinny Anthony, Mason Reiger. Oh, okay. Those are the only two. Okay, well, then we won't miss much. So Mason Reiger at the podium earlier today. I was in the scrum. I asked one question. Wasn't all that juicy. I just asked about, he has an interesting place on that Badgers defense because he comes in as a sixth-year player, and there were some other seasoned players on that defense. Ricardo Hallman, who didn't have a superstar season by any means, but he's been there forever. That's a legit player. But then the other names you think of are kids, Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano. So I asked him, like, what can you learn from that? What can you take away from that? Showing up as a sixth-year player being paired with 18, 19-year-olds, and that's the unit. You have to make that work. And I suppose that's reminiscent of NFL locker rooms as well. You got rookies and veterans, guys from all corners of the country and all backgrounds, all different programs got to come together and make it work. So I did ask him that question. A couple of things that I found noteworthy. It was a pretty Wisconsin-heavy scrum. There was a couple of Madison media members there, Lance Allen, Tim Van Vorn, a couple of Wisconsin media members like Mike Clemens. I believe Gary Wolfel, everybody's favorite media member, was there as well. A couple questions and answers. And I think the best way for me to play audio this week, being on remote and without a producer, I'm just going to use my phone speaker and play it right in my microphone here. Here's just 21 seconds of, again, pass rusher, defensive lineman Mason Reiger at the NFL Combine today, talking about how much he loved his time at Wisconsin. Here he is.
I love my time at Wisconsin. I'm super blessed to have an opportunity to go and play there, surrounded by great coaches and teammates alike, and just really developing me or pushing me to be a better person and player throughout this last year. This is my last chance to play college football, and to have the opportunity to do it at Wisconsin, it was a great year.
So very, very nice company line, pushing me to be the best player and the best man, and my final chance to play college football. He was asked by, I don't know if it was Lauren Cox or who was it, said, who's had the biggest impact on your career? And I believe the question was, is it a teammate? Is it a coach, head coach, positional coach? Who's had the biggest impact on your career? And I'll play you, I believe, both that question and answer here. And it's not the answer that I would have expected.
Who's had the biggest impact on your career, whether it's a parent, a coach, whoever? If you can name one. That's hard to say. I'd probably shout out my older brother. He really set the tone for my football career. 5 years old, really watching him. He was 7 playing football, and he paved the way. He showed me what it was going to take to work harder than everybody and to find success in the sport.
So, of course, I'm going to these press conferences or these little podium sessions, and I'm looking for something different than reporters are. Reporters are looking for information. Which teams have you met with? And they're reporters, they're looking to write a story like, hey, I'm covering the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills need pass rushers. So I'm talking to some pass rushers and I'm asking them, hey, what would you think about playing with, Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau? What does it make you feel? What do you think of when you think of the Buffalo Bills? I'm going to put that in my story. I'm here covering the combine for Buffalo Bills fans. I'm kind of just looking for show content. Can you give me a juicy nugget? Can you give me something to chew on? Give me something to pick at for 5, 8, 10 minutes. And I got to tell you, I was hoping that in some of these answers, especially when he's talking about Wisconsin, I guess I'm looking for specifics. Dare I say? I guess I'm looking for, hey, give me the name of a coach. Give me the name of, talk about Luke Fickell. Talk about a positional coach. I really appreciated the work that this guy did with me to upgrade my game. I'm really good with it. We didn't really get anything. Now, I understand that question was, can you name a coach or a teammate or somebody in your life who really turned you into the player that you are, right? It didn't necessarily need to be someone at Wisconsin. I would have really liked it. It would have made for good show content, right? To say, you know what, I think Luke Fickell was a great coach. He really had a good impact, or a positional coach, whatever. I just, with there only being 2 Badgers here this week, he gave a nice rant about UW football and what it meant for him at this stage of his career. I guess I just would have liked, some specifics, dare I say. It's a little scant for Wisconsin football this week with Mason Reiger today and Vinny Anthony later this week. I texted Zach Heilprin, our sports director, who's on the show all the time, on Monday. I was like, hey, could you come on with Bill? Could you do a hit? Because that's 90% of my job is just being a pain in the ass and asking people for favors. Could you do a hit and preview the combine with Bill before his show goes down to Indy for the week? And Zach said, what do you want? You want me to talk about the Badgers? I'm like, yeah, we don't need to do 15 minutes on it, but could you, just kind of set the table a little bit? And Zach goes, well, that's not a concern. There's only 2 of them. And I don't want to call it a sign of the times. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but with there only being 2 players down here, Mason Reiger was only there for 1 year, and he shouted out Wisconsin and talked about his time with the program and how it made him a good player. Not many specifics. Didn't really name any names. And a big portion of, his mediaville in which he was asked about Wisconsin, he talked about how it was adversity that shaped him. Not certain coaches or not certain teammates or positional guys, but that was my only losing season as a college football player. That's something that I had to struggle with and fight through. This is not really the endorsement you want for your program. So we're going to circle back to that. I'll play you some more sound from Mason Reiger. I know Vinny Anthony's coming up later this week. Mike Clemens and others will try to get some of that. Mike Clemens is going to join us in hour number 2 to talk about that media avail and others today, the things that he was hearing about maybe some Packers prospects and players they could look to draft. We're going to take a break and chat with Matthew Coller, the NFC North. The Vikings, sneaky. I know the NFL content calendar moves so fast. It wasn't that long ago that out of nowhere, maybe not out of nowhere, but surprising to those on the outside, the Vikings cut bait with their GM. So we'll talk about that, the NFC North, and what Matthew feels for some of the teams in the division, including the Packers, what they should do coming up in the draft and in the combine. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with Matt Coller, Purple Insider, on the other side.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, welcome back. Mike Clement's going to be here in the second hour of the show. We're going to get more Mason Reiger audio because, well, we're at the Combine and there's Badgers here. The funny thing is there's only two, and one of them, Mason Reiger, who actually could be a nice player. Like, he's only in Madison for a year. So we're not running from podium to podium for this O lineman and this D lineman and this corner or running backs, star running backs like we have in the past with Wisconsin football. So we'll continue with that. I want to talk a little Brewers in hour number 2 as well. But right now, Matthew Coller is your Purple Insider. We were just talking off the air. This is your 8th or 9th combine, you said? Something like that?
Well, there's the one year that there wasn't a combine. So I started covering the Vikings in training camp 2016. So I've probably gone to 8 of them, I would say.
Okay. And you don't think that this one has a lot of buzz?
I think this is the most buzzless NFL combine that has ever failed to buzz. I mean, think about the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
The number 1 draft pick quarterback is already locked in.
Feels that way.
And he's not going to work out.
Okay.
So that's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Every other quarterback prospect is barely worth discussing. I mean, when you ask someone about Ty Simpson, there's sort of like a sigh first yeah, I mean, so I was at like Daniel Jeremiah gives a press conference over here, which is really good because you just throw questions at him and he just, gives you a bunch of insight. And when he was asked about Ty Simpson, there exactly what you just like if you watch some of the games, some of the games he's all right, and then the other ones he's not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing. And then it's like, well, he didn't have any great players around him, but he barely even played college football. I don't know. What does that sound like? A 3rd round draft pick? Okay, that's our most exciting guy here. And it's like, but how long are Reuben Bain's arms? I don't know. They're going to measure him, and then someone will draft him. I mean, it's like, would you draft a guy who looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex? I don't know. Probably.
Will Campbell made it last year.
Yeah, right. Oh, until he has a bad Super Bowl, which means he's a bust because it was
he sucks.
Super Bowl. Yeah, right. Super Bowl. They acted like he was the worst player alive after struggling against the best defense in the NFL in the Super Bowl
as a rookie without a stud next to him.
I told you he couldn't make it with those arms.
Yeah,
he'd never take a team to the Super Bowl as a left tackle. But I mean, think about it's not that great of a class, and maybe there's some receivers.
Last year wasn't that great of a class.
I think every year there's somebody will say, there's not 32 first-round players, first-round grades. I've heard there's only 7.
Yeah.
They'll do that, but I think when you look at a lot of the years past, there was debatable prospects or prospects with a lot of intrigue or prospects that had such a high upside or once they get on that, like Matthew Golden was a guy that all of a sudden came to Indy and ran a 4.2 and then, whoa, okay, who the heck is this guy, right? And how is everything going to be ordered out? And I know that a lot of teams that are drafting in the top 10 are having some, intrigue discussions. And since the Minnesota Vikings aren't, maybe I've been on the outside looking in, but I also think that there isn't a lot of interesting rumors. I mean, people are talking about Malik Willis a lot and what's he going to get? Where's he going to go?
Interesting player. And
they're talking a little bit about the Vikings quarterback situation, but it's almost so clear that they don't want to start JJ McCarthy that I don't even hear people debating it. It's like, I guess they're getting someone else.
Well, so Score North is here and Thor Nystrom is the JJ McCarthy guy. And I don't know Thor, but he's from Northern Minnesota. And I'm like, I want to get him on I want to ask him about Northern Minnesota, but I also dude, can you do your JJ McCarthy thing? I want to hear it, but I didn't see him. I don't know if he wasn't here, or if they were only here for a couple of hours. I don't know. So I was actually kind of looking forward to that. That was the JJ McCarthy thing I was interested in.
All I know about the JJ McCarthy situation is that we sat down, some of us, with Kevin O'Connell and acting general manager Rob Brzezinski, and they had about 14 different opportunities in the line of questioning to say anything that would suggest that the Minnesota Vikings want JJ McCarthy to start in 2026.
Okay.
And they said none of those things,
Okay.
which is also about the third or fourth press conference we're on now, with plenty of opportunity to say, yes, we want JJ McCarthy to be our starter. Anywhere, anytime. We have lobbed it up to them. It has been a 88-mile-an-hour fastball to Barry Bonds that they could easily hit into the Pacific Ocean, and they have not done it. They could easily at any time commit to JJ McCarthy in any way, and they have talked around it, and yesterday's talk around it was focused on his traits. Well, he's shown his traits. He's shown the same traits that we drafted him and we loved him for, and we picked him over Sam Darnold for, but and it's like, But, I mean, how in the world could you look at those 10 games and look at the health record and say this is fine?
Yeah.
And there's no team in the NFL that would look at that performance, how long he's been on the team. He's been on the team for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we are going on almost 2 years he's been on the team. 10 out of a potential 34 games he's been on the field for. He started 10 times and was injured 4 times this year. I mean, 40% of your games you're getting hurt. Actually, if you add his preseason games, he was injured in 50% of his preseason games, 1 out of 2 as well. I mean, and then when he did play, as you saw him throw for 87 yards against the Green Bay Packers.
That was some kind of game.
I mean, where is it that there would be any evidence that this is someone that you should commit to? And that doesn't mean you have to give up on him or trade him to the Jets or something, but what it sounded like they want to do is to have a starting quarterback for next year that's a veteran, a Derek Carr, maybe it's a Kyler Murray, maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Aaron comes back, and then try to develop JJ McCarthy for another year and see what happens. But I mean, there are so many quarterbacks that through 10 starts, their teams were like, okay, well, that's about enough for us.
So put a pin in the McCarthy, the quarterback situation. I want to come back to that. I want to take a loop. I want to talk about your general manager first, though. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was relieved of his duties. And I think you could make a case that just based off his draft record, they had cause to go in a different direction. Like, he was not a great drafter. It's not to say that he didn't have good picks. He was good at some other things. But just off the drafting alone, you'd be like, yeah, look somewhere else. But I listened to your reaction podcast. You had a former player. Who was it? It was great.
Jeremiah Searles.
It was Jeremiah
former
Searles.
Offensive lineman.
And it just seems like there's more to the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah story than he wasn't a good drafter. And it's interesting. So can we hit some of that stuff?
Well, and one thing that really bugs me is that when we talk about the draft, it's like one guy did it. And nobody had anything to do with it. It was one guy who did all the drafting, and everyone else just sat in the corner quietly for 3 months leading up to the NFL draft until, he screwed up everything. I would also like to point out that when that narrative is out there about, you can't draft and so forth, they gave away most of their draft capital over the last 4 years in an effort to win right now. I mean, the Dallas Turner trade, moving up that much, giving up that much draft capital. You can't have a good player. You need to land, Will Anderson or something if you're going to give up that much draft capital. And so far he has been okay, and took a big step this year, but is not a megastar. And, they've traded for players when they were in need. They traded for Cam Robinson when Christian Darrisaw got hurt. They traded for Cam Akers. They traded for Jalen Reagor. Like, they've just been...
When Addison was he suspended or was he hurt?
Addison was suspended, but then Jalen Naylor got hurt.
That's right.
And so they weren't sure if Naylor was going to play. So, it's one thing after the next. And then you look around and you go, oh, the Packers and the Lions have 15 top 100 draft picks over the last 4 years, and the Vikings have 8.
Sure.
And you're just less likely. I mean, even some of the third round picks were back end of the third round. You're almost talking the first and a fourth last year was literally the last pick of the third round. And fans are like, why isn't that guy a star?
Sure.
Because he's the last pick of the third round. I mean, but, when you have 5 draft picks, it's unlikely that you're just going to nail them. So that one sort of always bugged me a little bit as a narrative. I think that Kwesi set the tone because his first draft went so badly. I mean, we're talking cataclysmic.
Is that the Lewis C
It was,
pick?
yeah. And Andrew Booth Jr. and Ed Ingram and everyone is, if Jalen Naylor signs elsewhere, I think the entire draft class will be gone.
Naylor was an okay, but I kind of like Jaden Naylor.
He's fine. Yeah, he's a good player. I would sign him if I needed a free agent wide receiver, but that's the 6th round draft pick. It's the only guy that's remotely worked out of an entire draft. And that was his brainchild to move down, get more draft capital, do a lot of shifting in that draft, and then it just went completely bust. But I think if that's the only focus of the conversation about why they fired the GM, then you're missing a lot.
Yeah.
I think Kwesi always came from a different universe. Was a stock market guy who then gave that Wall Street world up to go and work for the 49ers as a researcher and then built his way up through front offices. Very, very, very smart person. Who had, I think, a lot of good ideas for this team. The problem was I didn't see them getting executed very often. I mean, if you were talking about him as the analytics GM, you just couldn't find evidence that they were doing things differently than pretty much anyone else. And I think in some ways they were a victim of some of their own success. Like the way you envision a roster build is you win 7 games and then you win 9 games and then you win 11 and then you win the Super Bowl, right? But it never really works that way. So they kind of got ahead of themselves at first by winning 13, then revamp the roster, win 14 when they're not supposed to. Darnold plays the way he plays, and then they go hog wild because they had won 14 games the year before. And it blew up in their face because their first round quarterback didn't work out. But I promise you, if J.J. McCarthy had been good and they won 12 games, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah would still be the GM. Yeah. What ends up happening is when things go sideways and when Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl, you get a lot of headbutting. I mean, that's just how football ends up working out. And someone had to be the person to go. And I think they also didn't feel like a lot of people in the front office, the coaching staff, I didn't get the sense that they felt like this guy can lead us into a tumultuous time, because this is a tumultuous time. 2026, you look at the contracts, you look at the ages of the players, you look at the lack of cap space that they have and quarterback uncertainty, and you go, how do you get yourselves out of this? And it's going to take a really good leader to be able to guide them through the next couple of years, because they pushed all the chips into the middle of the table for really 24, 25, and 26. And one of those years just went completely bust. Yep. And now they're talking about, do you bring Kirk back or something, or do you get Aaron Rodgers? And that just doesn't feel that promising either.
So one more loop around the cul-de-sac before we just talk about what's next at quarterback. We don't need to belabor this. If you have 60 seconds, what do you think the 2025-26 Vikings would have looked like if they had Sam Darnold?
Yeah, that's a coping thing that a lot of Vikings fans have done. They've said, well, if we had franchise tag Darnold, we wouldn't have been good enough to win the Super Bowl. And my thing is, you can certainly say that, but last year
they would have been pretty good.
Last year you won 14 games with an imperfect roster and Sam Darnold. So I don't know. You certainly would have been better. You were 9-8.
They won the same amount of games as the Packers.
The 28th best offense. Yeah. That's how. And maybe the defense isn't quite as good if you don't have Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. They improved at the end of the year, but I don't think that they were 2 of the better defensive tackles even in the NFL. I think if they had franchise tag Sam Darnold, been more shrewd with their money as opposed to just sort of throwing, they spent more cash than anybody else in the league last year. Instead of just throwing cash at everything, re-signing everybody, and instead used a scalpel instead of a chainsaw in free agency, I think you could put together a team that wins 11 or 12 games with Sam Darnold.
I think so.
But the thing is that after he'd won 14 and had those playoff games, you can call them both playoff games at the end of that year, and with McCarthy waiting in the wings, every game that Sam Darnold wasn't great, it would have been like, it's time to play McCarthy. Yeah. This guy can't do it.
I get it.
The pressure, I think, would have been immense. And they never did anything to even quell some of the expectation that had been set for J.J. McCarthy. It was like the fans were told, this is your franchise quarterback, and that's it. And he is so good that we will get rid of a 14-win quarterback for this guy. And then he comes out and plays the first 2 weeks, and you're like, what is this?
There was no media massaging and in training camp to you guys where it's like, JJ's learning, because sometimes the organizational.
After you win 14 games, what are you supposed to say? You can't say guys, this is going to be a multi-year process and there's going to be a development and everything else. I think that they believed after coaching up Sam Darnold that they could do the same thing for JJ McCarthy. And if he was 80% of Sam Darnold, the roster would be so good that they would win even when he was imperfect. We're just going to draw it all up, lay it all out for him. But the thing that they couldn't have anticipated is that it was dang near impossible for him to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, which is wild.
Yeah.
Because every other quarterback who has ever attempted to throw a pigskin in the direction of number 18 has had incredible success. And for him to not be able to get on the same page with the best receiver in the world is another one of those, like, I don't know how you go back to that without at least more time developing on the bench.
Matt Coller is here, Purple Insider. So what do the Vikings do this? Are they so out on McCarthy to the point where they're looking to outright replace him, or is the strategy like we're going to get the best possible competitor against McCarthy that we think he still could beat out? You know what I mean? Do you kind of get how I'm framing that?
Yes, and that is exactly what I asked both Kevin O'Connell and their acting general manager, Rob Brzezinski. To what degree of competition do you want?
Much better way to frame it.
Once again, there's an opportunity there to say, well, we're not looking for like a locked-in starter. We're looking for someone to really compete with JJ. They did not say that.
Bring out the best in JJ.
They could have said that, right? They could have said, well, we want someone to be there every day, battling tooth and nail with him or something, but we're not looking. They could have ruled out Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Malik Willis. They could have ruled all that out and said, like, we're not looking for a starter. We're looking for someone to, if JJ doesn't take the next step or if he gets injured again or something. They said everything's on the table, which to me means the most aggressive option is what they're looking at, which is someone else to be the starting quarterback. And then you go, all right, well, there's only like 5 people that would be. I think all 5 would want to play for the Vikings. Now, Malik Willis, can you give him that much money? Probably not. But even Malik, you're like, dude, the Dolphins or the Vikings?
I talked about this in December. Like, if I'm Malik Willis, the Vikings sound real juicy.
It all does. If you're Kyler Murray, you're looking at what happened with Sam Darnold. You're going, let's see, former top draft pick, very talented guy with a bad organization who landed in Minnesota and then made $100 million more. That sounds like a good idea. If you're Kirk, you're thinking, I could beat out JJ McCarthy. He might have not even sold his house.
Yeah.
Like, he could I know what neighborhood I'm going to live in. He could come back and know the entire offense, doesn't have to learn a new offense, doesn't have to learn a new city. His kids can go back to the same schools that they were at. Like, that seems pretty convenient for him. And we already know that Aaron Rodgers wanted to be here last year. Why would he change his mind from what he wanted last year? Because it doesn't necessarily seem like he wants to go back to Pittsburgh.
How do you think your readers and listeners would respond if Kirk came back?
I think it would feel very much like purgatory because we all know that Kirk Cousins is capable of playing good football. Think about some of the games against the Packers over the years that he played. I think of that one in 2021 at home where he went crazy throwing to Jefferson. There's a back and forth between him and Rodgers. Thielen catches the ball at the end, sets up the game-winning field goal. I mean, there's plenty of games that you can point to and go, man, this guy's good enough to get you into the playoffs. And I think that's true with Brian Flores' defense, the kicking game they have, the coaching they have, the receivers they have.
So good this year.
Right.
Oh my God.
And the expectation is that he'll be good again. So if you can meet the way they framed it was a certain baseline. If you can meet this certain baseline, but with Cousins, is that really still possible over 17 games? He's not played a 17-game season since 2022. I mean, we're talking an Achilles. We're talking a benching. We're talking shortened seasons. The velocity isn't there anymore. And last year, he threw 20% of his passes were screens, like behind the line of scrimmage to Bijan Robinson. They were just trying to protect him. He cannot move anymore. I mean, this is not 2021 Kirk, who was really, gunning it all over the place. And even then, what were we saying about 2021 Kirk, who went 8-9? There's a limited ceiling. And I think that's why Kyler Murray is intriguing to me. That's why Malik Willis is intriguing to me. And Derek Carr a little bit. Like, Derek Carr has had a few seasons in his career where he's really good. With Kirk, if he were 33, you would say, yeah, this guy probably with an elite defense can get you to the playoffs and be dangerous. At 37, with
Wow.
one Achilles.
To your point, he hasn't played a full season since last time the Packers won the division, which is
well,
forever ago.
And those Achilles pop again. Like you see that happen all the time. So if you're like, yeah, our big plan is to play Kirk for 2026. It's training camp. His Achilles popped again. But then, there's risk that goes along with all of it. Maybe Malik Willis isn't great. Everyone I talk to in Green Bay is like, we love this guy so much, and there's some real freaks who want him to be the quarterback instead of Jordan
we
Love.
Hear from them. Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. And I love you, freaks. But that's quite a take. But still, that shows how much everybody in Green Bay likes Malik Willis. And if you can do the thing that the Packers would really hate, that might be kind of fun. I mean, Rodgers can't move anymore, and you saw what happened in the playoff game. That will probably happen again. That's why Derek Carr, to me, is the option I keep coming back to. Okay. And Murray. I think Murray's my favorite option, but Carr makes the most sense. He can still play. I'm certain of that from the way that he performed the last time he was in. He plays on time. He plays with rhythm, and I think he can throw the ball to a number one wide receiver over and over and over again in an offense.
That's a good starting point.
Can that get you any farther than Kirk ever did? Continues to be the question. It's a division with some great quarterback play. I think that, Jordan Love and Jared Goff are sort of sports radio quarterbacks because everybody can have an opinion and debate them. But when we pull it back, bigger picture, they're both great quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, I know.
We've spent 3 years debating whether or not he's the guy. We're not stopping anytime soon.
I fully understand that. But what I mean is I just was watching about the 32nd best quarterback play in the league, other than maybe Brady Cook and Shadur Sanders. I think JJ was better than them.
Pro Bowler.
But it's like, Pro Bowler and Shadur Sanders. But when you pull it back and look at the numbers that have been put up by Jordan Love and Jared Goff and what Caleb Williams did last year, and you go, can you really compete with those teams? You got to have great defense. You got to have a great running game, which I think they're going to care about. And then they're going to try to meet a baseline of quarterback play. But it's an uphill battle when the other three teams are all run well overall. Maybe not the special teams in the playoffs for the Packers, but there are things that are run well. And
I'm with you. We've been doing this for over a decade. You got to go, but 30 seconds. Would you rather have Kirk or Rodgers?
That's
maybe different answers for winning games versus covering the team. And
I mean, Rodgers, just seeing him still throw the ball would be pretty fun. Mm-hmm. And for the moment that I'm at Lambeau and he walks out of the tunnel, probably that. I covered a lot of Kirk. I could do something different.
I've covered a lot of Kirk. I could do something different. It's the perfect place to wrap up. Thank you. It is appreciated. I find your team very interesting. I really like talking about them. So thank you for doing this.
And I like coming on the show. So I appreciate it.
Matt Coller, Purple Insider. We will be right back from the 2026 Scouting Combine. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. We're live here at the Scouting Combine. I love Matthew Coller. I find I was selling him after we wrapped up and went to commercial break. I find the Vikings such an interesting team. And I don't feel that way about the Bears. Historically, I've never felt that way about the Lions. Maybe it's that I grew up close-ish to the Twin Cities, about an hour from there, in Northwest Wisconsin. So we'd listen to KQ. I didn't really listen to K-Fan, but I don't know. Maybe it's there's more Vikings fans in that portion of the state, so that rivalry growing up felt more engaged. It felt literally closer to home. The Vikings are such a fascinating team because they're not historically a suckbag franchise like the Lions or the Bears. And that's true. Not right now, but historically, like I'm not even trying to be a jerk sports talk radio guy. Like the Lions were bad and incompetent and cheap and all of the things you would never want a franchise be for the longest time. And they figured it out, which has been great. And the Bears, much of the same. And the Bears seem like they have the coach and the quarterback now, and we'll see. But historically, the Vikings have always been well run. The Wilfs give a crap. The Wilfs really give a crap. I don't know the politics and the economics of every owner, and I don't mean politics as in like who they support, but like the way they operate within the context of the NFL, the way they run their team, the way they pay for things. The Wilfs give a crap. And I can't remember who it was on the show recently. We were talking about the Vikings. Oh, it was Kyle Rudolph, who said it's almost comical how much success the Vikings have had historically, and still they've never won a Super Bowl. And I had to laugh. It's like, well, I doubt Vikings fans find it comical, but it is an interesting situation because I think there are much lesser franchises in the NFL who've had championships. And I believe that of Major League Baseball too. Like, I think there are much lesser franchises than the Brewers who give less of a crap and are less invested and have worse ownership and they're not as smart, who have won championships. So I find the Vikings very interesting. I also love having Matthew on because he's a former radio guy, and I just love guys who get this thing that we like, this format of sports talk radio. 608-321-1670. A couple of texts coming in. Because we can't take calls this week, I'm really trying to not neglect the talk and text line. Madtown Ryan says, hey, the Bears, if it's a thing, they want a rivalry, they're verbalizing it. Why are we not verbalizing it back? Let's get after him. Let's bury the Bears this year. So Ben Johnson had some more comments to the media. I believe these were with Florio on Pro Football Talk, talking about how I don't like the Packers. I don't communicate with Matt LaFleur. This is a rivalry. I'll play you this audio here. This is certainly one of the bigger stories. Well, I might have to pull it up over the next just over the next break. But basically a rehash and a repeat of things that we've heard from Ben Johnson in the past. I don't like that team. I shouldn't like the Packers. They shouldn't like us. Kind of cocky, chest out, puffed out. And I just hate so much that the Packers let that team off the hook twice. They should have swept them this year. They should have swept them last year too. By the way, that week 18 game still annoys the hell out of me. And Jordan Love wasn't even playing in the second half. It was Malik Willis, and they still should have won. The only reason they didn't is Matt LaFleur took a phantom timeout not for no reason, because he and his now former special teams coordinator and assistant head coach couldn't get on the same page about exactly how many yards Brandon McManus needed and whether or not they need to go for a fourth down here or there. So they leave 30-40 seconds on the clock, kick the field goal. It's longer than it should have been. McManus makes it by the grace of God, and then the Bears have time to go win it. They had no reason to lose that game. So the way I see it, in 3 of the last 4 games against the Chicago Bears, the Packers have sold hard. And it really annoys me. The Packers, with injuries to Tucker Kraft, Micah Parsons, Zach Tom, and others, like, they were not winning a Super Bowl this year. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I've come to terms with that. So on this show or on Bill's show, anytime we're critical of the Packers in the season that they just had, you'll have Packers fans or people chiming in on the show saying things like, well, they were hurt. They're injuries. Yes, the injuries changed the framing of the season. The Packers should have gone to Seattle in the divisional round and lost a well-played football game. That's how the season should have ended. And that might not mean a whole lot to you. Maybe you don't care about that because, well, they weren't winning the Super Bowl anyway. So Grant, why are you getting your boxers in a bunch? They lost a round earlier than they should have. Okay. Maybe I wouldn't care as much if that loss in the wild card round hadn't come to the Bears. And maybe I'd care less if they weren't leading 21-3 in that game. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a big difference in going on the road, beating your rival in the wild card round, even without your star tight end and even without your star edge rusher, and then going and losing to a proper number 1 seed in their building, which is a house of horrors the next week. That's a big difference for me. I'd feel a lot different about Matt LaFleur and the Packers right now if they had just advanced one more round, but they sold just like they sold in Chicago in week 15, 16, or whatever that was. And if they hadn't sold against the Bears at the end of last year, you've allowed this team to puff out their chests and fire up a rivalry, which is good. But you've allowed this team to get a handhold in this rivalry when they absolutely shouldn't have. Like, you sold so hard at home last year. You sold so hard on the road with Malik Willis on that Saturday night game, and then you peed all over yourself in the second half of that wild card round against the Bears. So I think the biggest frustration for me in the Packers-Bears rivalry is all of this was so needless. Like, the dynamic should not currently be set the way that they are. The Packers allowed this to happen. It annoys the heck out of me. So I'll give you that Ben Johnson audio coming up on the other side. I want to be very clear about how we're judging this Packers season. Once Micah Parsons got hurt, after Tucker Kraft got hurt, you can say, okay, this isn't a Super Bowl team. Fine. That's fine. change the framing a little bit. They still should have won a lot more than 9 games, and they should have beat the Bears. They were up 21-3. If you're good enough to get an 18-point lead in the second half of a playoff game, you're good enough to win the playoff game. Well, they didn't have Micah Parsons. They were up 18 points, and they sold so hard. All right, we're going to take a break. We can continue to talk Packers-Bears for a couple minutes on the other side. I think I'm going to wrangle Mike Clemens to the table, hopefully for hour number 2. We're going out for a steak tonight. I'm very much looking forward to that. I'll give a Skyline chili review as well in the second hour. It was pretty good. I'll give you a story or two from last night. We're at the Scouting Combine here, the NFL Scouting Combine, the rest of the week. Tonight's show presented by La Crosse Beer House, corner 3rd and Pearl in downtown La Crosse. Killer spot for a fish fry. Now we're into the thick of things and fish fry season. So go down there, get a mug of authentic German beer. I like the Hefeweizen. I believe that's what it's called, I think. I am not a beer snob or a beer expert. It's very delicious, though, as is any type of beer I've ever had at La Crosse Beer House is delicious. They hold up their end of the bargain, I should say, with their name. The fish fry is great. You can get the pig bacon. You get the big pretzel. Go down there. It's right in the heart of downtown La Crosse on the corner of 3rd and Pearl. We appreciate them for presenting the show. We'll do one more segment, hour number 1, coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Last couple minutes, the first hour of the show here. We might get Mike Clemens. I think I'm going to try to wrangle him back down to the table here to conclude the second hour of the show. We're live here at the Combine. Mike Clemens is upstairs in the workspace in the media room. I felt myself becoming a jaded member of the NFL media in real time today. I'll give you that story. I want to give you a recap of Skyline Chili last night because, oh boy, it was actually quite good. So a couple of combine anecdotes. I want to talk a little Brewers in the second hour as well. First, here's the audio I was talking about. Mike Florio, Ben Johnson on Pro Football Talk. Ben Johnson cocking off about the Packers once again. Here's the audio if you missed it.
What is the deal with the Packers?
First of all, what is the deal with the Packers? Come on.
Who likes the Packers? How much of that is leading fully into your job as Bears coach, and how much of it is how you truly feel?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears and the Packers, they should not like each other. I think it's as simple as that. And I think that's going to make this rivalry, this game, something that people are going to watch here going forward.
Have you talked to Matt LaFleur at all? Because I feel like he gets confused. Like, what did I do? Do you have any relationship with him? Have you heard from him? Has he called you up and he said, what's the deal? Like anything like that?
No, we don't talk.
Okay. Do you want it that way?
I'm good with it.
First of all, I feel like Matt LaFleur, what did I do? Yeah, he probably does feel that way. It's part of what, weirdly, as this offseason continues, I'm becoming less and less of a Matt LaFleur guy, which shouldn't be possible because they've played no games, right? The biggest criticism of the draft industrial complex, as some people call it, is that how can players move up and down a draft board? They haven't played any games. But they test and, this media creation drives up demand for one player or another. I feel like the same is true with me for Matt LaFleur. The farther we get into this offseason, the less I like him. And still, I'm not full boat saying I would have changed courses. I would have fired him. But I don't know, man. Just a lot of red flags this last season. Two of the biggest ones were in the Bears games. The two that they blew, they had no business losing either one of those games. They had no business losing in Week 18 last season the way that they did either. It's annoying. So you've given the Bears, now your rival, a reason to come up for air in this whole thing. And you got your coach media mogging you and victory speech mogging you all postseason and in the offseason. It's very annoying. It's very, very, very annoying. And I hate it because I tweeted something kind of anti-Matt LaFleur earlier today. It's not Twitter. It's not real life, so who cares? But I tweeted something about, the two blown Bears games. And Bukowski and others are replying to my tweet saying things like, whoa, what do you want Matt LaFleur to go out and cut you onside kick full Romeo? No, but that's not the point. You're missing the forest for the trees. The issue with Matt LaFleur and the Packers is they've never been able to figure out special teams. So what? I'm just supposed to, it'll be fine next year? That one moment against the Bears in week 16 or week 17, it was just a one-off? Oh, sure. Okay. Well, if you can bring yourself to believe that, then I guess I'm happy for you. Oh, well, what did you want? Did you want Matt LaFleur to go make those kicks for Brandon McMahon? You know what? I want a head coach that gets his team to play their best ball at the most important part of the game. A head coach that has his team buttoned up with the details. So we talked about with Mike Felger at the Super Bowl. I think it's the soundbite or the prevailing thought of this offseason is the little things, the details, execution when it matters most. They're not buttoned up. The EPA, the efficiency numbers are great. And I talked about that all season long. The Bukowskis of the world are throwing that in our face over and over. Look at the EPA per play. Look at the DVOA. It's all stats and graphs and graphs and stats and spreadsheets and graphs and stats and spreadsheets, Monday through Friday. And then you watch on Sunday and you're like, there's something missing. And it's this team's ability to execute in the 2 or 3 most important plays of the game. And even when they do execute, like that completion of Romeo Doubs down the stretch in the Bears game, even when you do execute, he's running out of bounds, stopping the clock, essentially giving the Bears another timeout. So even when you're executing, you're still not executing. It's very obnoxious. A couple combine stories on the other side. We'll get a quick update from Zach Heilprin. I'm going to wrangle Mike Clemens down here. More from the scouting combine coming up next.
This is the Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it's game day for the Wisconsin basketball team. They're out in Oregon to face the Ducks in the first of two West Coast games as they going to head to Washington on Saturday. Wisconsin's won 10 of its last 13 games, while Oregon has just 3 wins in conference play. Well, a lot of focus has been on Wisconsin's offense, how fast they played the last 2 years. The longtime tenet of the program, taking care of the ball first, has remained a focus for Coach Greg Gard.
You have to be strong with the ball. I mean, and I think that's another area that we have understood as a team. Collectively, we have to take care of it, right? And we've always had. I think we were averaging 8, and we're one of the top in the country. I think we're averaging 8 turnovers a game, and we're playing at the pace we're playing at and the number of possessions we're trying to create. And you can still play fast and aggressive and take care of the ball. You can do both. We've proven it.
Again, it'll be Wisconsin and Oregon tonight out in Eugene. It's going to be a late one. Tip not coming in until 10 o'clock. Turning to the Bucks. They got back on the right side of things last night. They come back win over Miami at Fiserv Forum. They've now won 7 of 10, sit just a game and a half out of the final spot for the play-in tournament. They'll look to keep the momentum going tonight when Cleveland visits. Tip there is at 7.
Every child deserves a fair shot at a bright future. That's why Save the Children Head Start administers Head Start programs in rural America. We leveled the playing field early, helping children start school strong, stay strong, and unlock their full potential. Because education is the best path out of poverty. Learn more at savethechildren.org/Head Start.
Well, the NFL Combine continuing down in Indianapolis today as players begin to speak with the media. On-field testing will get going tomorrow. Yesterday, Packers GM Brian Gutekunst told reporters that their process doesn't really change, even though they do not have a first-round pick this year thanks to the Micah Parsons trade. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Hour number 2, the Wisco Sports Show. Welcome back. Day number 2, show number 2 here from the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Happy to have you as we start to begin hour number 2. Appreciate Zach for that update. And he mentioned Mason Reiger meeting with the media earlier today. Both Mike Clemens and I were in that scrum. I'm hoping, Mike, we can coax him down from the workroom and get him to come down here. Yeah, he just texted me maybe for the last half hour of the show or so we can recap some of the things that we saw and heard. I found it, look, we try to talk Badgers football. I am not Zach. I am not Jesse. I am not RJ on the morning show or Ebo, but we try, follow the stories. So I go to Mason Reiger's availability today. Like, can we get anything? Can we get any nugget? Can we get an answer about his year at Wisconsin that shouts out a coach or just anything? I'm starving, Mason. Give me any Wisconsin football thing. And we didn't really get anything. In fact, maybe the most specific, or what I found to be the most interesting part of his Badgers commentary, which wasn't his, he's getting ready to go into the NFL draft. So it's not like he's just talking about his experience at Wisconsin. He's talking about his whole college career and which teams he's met with and which teams he's talked to. This is 44 seconds. Mason Reiger talking about his experience at Wisconsin. And he's actually more so talking about like the bad stuff, the adversity. Like, this is my first losing season as a college football player. Listen to this. As I need to unmute the sound. Hold on. Yeah, real high-level producing going on here. Sorry about that. Here's Mason Reiger.
Yeah, I think that's just the adversity that I talked about having this year at Wisconsin. That was my first losing season, and that was tough. As a sixth-year college guy, someone who's been playing football 17 years, but to really have the opportunity each week to go through another week of preparation and a new opponent, and with the schedule we had, was seriously a blessing to have these teams each week to prepare for. And regardless of what happened the week before, I think that's what it takes to be somebody who can flush what happened before and move on and really apply yourself to the next week and take that opportunity, because we were playing Indiana, Oregon late in the year, teams like that, Illinois. Those are big games that I always dreamed about playing in.
So again, he gave multiple answers, and he indicated it at the beginning of that comment. One of the first things he talked about, because it was Tim Van Voorn and Lance Allen basically angling for some Wisconsin angles, because there was a bunch of Wisconsin media there, myself and Mike Clemens included. Like, how did Wisconsin prepare you? What can you say about your final season of college football, which was in Madison, playing in the Big Ten, playing with Wisconsin? And it was adversity. It was a lot of commentary that talked about adversity and, taking a lot of games on the chin. I mean, They lost some stinkers. They weirdly probably performed better than you ever would have expected against Oregon and against Indiana. I think the most frustrating part of this Badger season, at least for me, is that they are still not close to Iowa. They didn't feel close to Minnesota, which is more frustrating this year than it was a year ago because they had some late season momentum this season in a way that they didn't last season. Like they had beaten Washington, they'd beaten Illinois, which are probably two of the bigger wins of the Luke Fickell era for whatever that's worth, which isn't much, but it's still something. And it's in that context, it's in that type of season where they still went into that Minnesota game and no-showed. Like, okay, so if you can't get up to compete with Iowa this year, when it was the whole purpose of your offseason, and you can't get up to compete with Minnesota this year, even though you have real reason to, like you shouldn't have been checked out of that season. You had just beaten Illinois. You had just beaten Washington. So what's your deal? And they still weren't even close to Minnesota. So Mason Reiger talking a little bit of that adversity, but he's almost talking about his season at Wisconsin like it was a preseason for the NFL. Well, the opportunity to go through another week of preparation, and he talks about it like it's a developmental academy almost, or the games are saying. And I'm not saying that he didn't want to win. The season almost forced him, in his words, it's what he was describing, to just stay week to week, focus on getting better, and the football and the winning of the football games sound now in hindsight like it was secondary. It was just one final year to get ready for the pros. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. I'm not trying to be unfair. But I did not find that media avail in the comments about UW to be glowing endorsements, might I say. Glowing endorsements for the program. That's it. If you want to text and you have anything to say about Mason Reiger, again, it's a... scrape at the bottom of the barrel for Badger content here at the Combine because they only have two guys and Reiger was only there for 1 year. So it's not like he's Chanel or Watt who were from Wisconsin and had played a while. We saw him come up through the ranks. He dropped in for a year and was pretty good. And now he's gone. So that's what we're working with, Badgers fans. So if you have a Badgers comment, you can text it in 608-321-1670. Back to Packers and Bears. Cindy said, Ben is obsessed with the Packers. Matt doesn't know how to step on the throat and gas. He gets up some points and sits back. We talked about this. All these interviews between the Super Bowl and this week start to run together. But maybe this was a conversation that I didn't have on the show. But Matt LaFleur, now we've seen, has a way that he wants to win games. And I think his thought process and his strategy is reflected in multiple defensive coordinators now. Between Mike Pettin, Joe Barry, and now we'll see with Jonathan Gannon, Jeff Hafley, of course, too. Doesn't it feel like all those defensive coordinators kind of feel a little bit of the same? Take the press conferences out of it, folks. Like truly, pound for pound, compare the job that Joe Barry did with the job that Jeff Hafley did and adjust for personnel. Jeff Hafley was not leaps and bounds better than Joe Barry. They were going to sit back and allow teams to pick up little gains, and they're going to force opponents to drive the length of the field a couple of steps at a time. That's what Matt LaFleur wants to do. I also think that his strategy for winning games, and you can go back to his first year with Aaron Rodgers, 2019, and you can see this. We want to get a lead, and then we're going to switch the way that we play. And I don't know if you can say that he takes his foot off the gas or he won't step on a team's throat. It is not in his nature to try to embarrass an opponent. No, it's in his nature to try to win the game in the way that he thinks is best, is to get a lead of any size, a 3-point lead, a 4-point lead, a 7-point lead. And now we're managing that lead, both defensively and offensively. Although I don't think, especially in the playoff game, I don't think Matt LaFleur got conservative as a play caller the way that lots of Packers fans think. I think he might have gotten conservative from 10,000 feet. Like the whole operation maybe got a little conservative. But they dropped back and threw the ball. Rasheed Walker couldn't hold up. Or Jordan Love didn't have the right read at the right time. Or, Jaden Reed at the very end of the game drops a ball that hits him right in the hands because, of course, Matt LaFleur wants to manage a lead. So, Cindy, when you say Matt LaFleur doesn't know how to step on an opponent's throat, I don't think it's his bag. I don't think it's his style and his strategy to do that thing. I don't think that's how he wants to coach. The frustrating part is not his style of coaching. It's that his style of coaching isn't working. Like a 21-3 lead in a playoff game should be more than manageable. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to take a 21-3 lead and win that game. And if you can, I don't think it's because he doesn't want to step on a team's throat. It's because he can't even manage a game the way that he wants to manage, which is a little bit more, I don't know. I almost compare it to basketball, the way that we used to talk about Coach Bud. Coach Bud, notoriously, we talked about this, would give up, the Bucks defense would give up certain types of threes, right? They're just going to live with, let's say, above the break threes or wing threes. We're just going to live with it because those aren't high percentage shots. We're going to close off the rim. We're going to close off the better looks. And if the team starts putting them in from, above the break, we'll live with that. That's fine. I think it was the Nets or maybe the Pistons in the first round, and then eventually the Heat. The point that I always made was, well, if you give a team a bunch of above the break threes, shots that you don't consider to be good, and they make a couple of them, well, it's really hard to reverse course. It's really hard to adjust now because that team has built up some confidence. If they hit a couple of those shots that you give them, if you give some teams, shots that are not wide open, but if you give them some looks and they put them in, well, now it's not as simple as, well, now we'll just start defending them because now they have confidence. They've seen the ball go through the hoop. So I think it's the same with maybe the style of offense, or let's just say a lead management strategy that the Packers use. Well, we'll give them a couple little throws here. Okay. But what happens when Caleb Williams connects on a couple of those little throws, and then he starts to get into a rhythm? So he starts to hit the harder throws, even if you're defending them well or prioritizing those throws. And now they're feeling it and they have momentum, and it's hard to rein it back in at that point. So I think in all sports, and again, I gave you a Bucks analogy, in all sports, I think it's really difficult to employ a strategy of, we're going to give up this, that, and the other thing and defend ABC. Well, that's a really good way to get a team feeling a little momentum. It's a really good way to get have the opposing team see the ball go through the hoop. And once that happens, it can be harder to defend everything, I guess is my point. I'm kind of stumbling over my words a little bit. Rick from Spencer says, if I'm Willis, I sign with Minnesota, even if he's leaving money on the table. Malik Willis has been a very interesting player at the Combine. About where he should go, where he can play. We've talked about this with Sam Brookhouse in the past. Even when he was on the show, I don't know, back in November, his point was Malik Willis has shown very well in, 2 or 3 games here and there. He was very skeptical that if you were to blow up his sample and blow up his performance to a larger scale, that it would translate over 17 regular season games. We were with Greg Cosell last night after my show, and I asked him, Greg, what do you think about Malik Willis? You think he could go be a capable starter? His point was that, Malik Willis, he thought he was intriguing and the traits in the film is good. But again, he's skeptical that blown up over 17 games, that he would continue to perform at the same level. What he said is Malik Willis has not thrown more than a certain number of passes in a game. And I'm going to try to find the total. And it was his rookie year as a member of the Titans. And it was maybe 23 passes. That was his high of attempts as a rookie, 2023 or 2022, 23 passes. And I'm just going to comb his game log here. So 23 passes is his career high. He only played in 3 games in year number 2. 2024 with the Packers, the most passes he attempted was 19. 2025, the most passes he attempted was 18. Or 21, excuse me, in that Ravens game. So Greg Cosell, who watches more film than any human being on planet Earth, he's been with NFL film since the 70s, saying, Malik Willis is really nice. And he said, look, I don't think anybody doubts that he's a very, his personality and his head and his approach is really good. And I think that's why, he can come in a moment's notice and succeed as a backup. His career high in attempts in any game is 23. And there's going to be a game. By the way, if he goes to Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell's going to want him to sling it. There's going to be a game where he's expected to throw or asked to throw 35 times. What does that look like? Because I remember in maybe one of his lesser moments or one of his worst games, remember the Packers, it would have been week 18 against the Bears last year. He just straight up didn't feel pressure coming off of his I believe it would have been the right tackle. Guy's right in his lap, blows him away. Because he didn't see him coming, didn't feel him coming, and then the ball was out, I believe. Just got crushed. So there's still some shortcomings with Malik Willis, pocket presence, decision-making. It's really hard to navigate an NFL season and to start 17 games when your career high is 23 attempts. And you haven't done that in 4 years. And you haven't been on the team for which you did that in 3 years. So I think Malik Willis to the Vikings is really juicy. I think Malik Willis to the Dolphins is interesting. Malik Willis to a team like Pittsburgh is I'm interested. I'm there for it. I want to see it. I just don't know if he's a bona fide starter for a team that needs a bona fide starter, lock, stock, and barrel. I think the dream scenario, if I'm a general manager, is I sign Malik Willis with my pile of money and I draft a quarterback and we let him duke it out. And either Malik Willis is great, or maybe you hit a home run with a 3rd round pick like the Seahawks did when they signed Matt Flynn and drafted Russell Wilson. Like I would try to do that thing. That to me would be the best. If I'm a general manager, that would be the best way. And that's why Minnesota might make some sense. Bring him in and have him compete with JJ McCarthy. And if JJ McCarthy, rises to the occasion, great. Then the guy you drafted is the guy. But if not, maybe then it's Malik Willis. Matt Coller gave a bleak outlook in the first hour. We talked about the Vikings. Give a bleak outlook for JJ McCarthy. Excuse me. And the messaging that's come from the Vikings on that player, basically saying Kevin O'Connell and is there interim GM Rob Brzezinski, freaking awesome Minnesota name. They've had all of these opportunities to come out and say, JJ McCarthy's our guy. We want him as our starter. We continue to hope he's our starter moving forward. You're not going to promise anything and guarantee anything to a certainty in an offseason press conference, but you can deliver, messaging that's stronger than the messaging they've delivered. It was Matt's point. And Matt is a very pragmatic football analyst. He is not one that's prone to, sensationalism. Not saying that I would be. You kidding me? I would never do that. So I think Minnesota, because they have a quarterback that could maybe be pushed to win a quarterback competition, be very interesting. And you're not beholden to Malik Willis coming in, although I think it would be a smart bet in Minnesota. Because I think JJ McCarthy stinks. And I think the Vikings, just based on their messaging, might think that as well. Plus, they fired their GM. Never, what you don't have typically, what situation typically doesn't exist? Is where a team goes, man, we love the quarterback we just drafted, but the GM's got to go. Those two things typically don't go hand in hand. There can be weird circumstances for sure. There can be exceptions, but for the most part, teams that are very pleased with their young quarterback that was just drafted, typically that team doesn't can the GM. Typically. And I don't think Minnesota is, I don't think they're atypical. I just don't know that JJ McCarthy is that great and he can't stay healthy. Double jeopardy, right? Let's talk a little Brewers when we come back. Mike Clemens going to join us at the bottom of the hour. I'll give you a couple spring training updates from 2 players. And I'm like, interesting. They're playing the Giants right now. Jesus Mate and Bryce Turang having big games. So we can talk about that. Plus, the Bleacher Nation, the Cubs vlog is at it again. Just some incredible work from Brett Taylor that I want to pick at and use for content coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, welcome back. I'm reading your texts, accepting your comments at 608-321-1670. Cindy and Madison, Madtown Ryan, Rick from Spencer, Cowdy Mike, appreciate you guys. A couple Brewers comments. First of all, Bryce Terang is hitting home runs. Maybe not the night to do this. Maybe we'll do this in a month. Maybe we'll do this in March. Maybe we'll do this in early April. But I think there's a case to be made, or there's a segment to be done about Bryce Terang. And I'm not trying to overhype the guy or just be a Brewers homer, but you could find a collection of numbers and measurables and bars that he's clearing that put him in pretty high regard in Major League Baseball. There's only some guys that are doing what he's doing defensively. Now, the power is not it's not overwhelming like it would be for, a big time first baseman or third baseman or outfielder. And I don't know how many home runs he had last year, but over the course of a season, if Bryce Terang gives you, 20 home runs, 18 to 20, 22 home runs, something like that. He had 18 last year. So we're right in that window. Elite defense, a bunch of stolen bases. Like, he's sneaky, a very, very good player, which is weird because he's just very quietly, kind of unassumingly come along from 2023 to 2025. But last year, let me see, I just want career. Okay, 2025. Last year gave you 288 with a 794 OPS. He's a 5.5 win player. Holy balls. 24 stolen bases, 18 home runs. As a relatively slim, elite defensive second baseman. Like, again, this is not the day to do this because I need to comb around with some numbers. I think I might have bookmarked something about Terang not that long ago. Let me search real quick. Got me thinking. Here it is from earlier this month. The only players in Major League Baseball to record 10 plus WAR and 70 plus stolen bases in the last 2 seasons, which again it's a specific bar, right? Like, I'm not trying to tell you that Bryce Terang's the best baseball player in the world, but the only players with 10 plus WAR over the last 2 years. And Bryce Terang, for example, he was a 4.5 win player last year, 2 years ago, 5.5 wins last summer. So he's a 10 plus WAR player, 10 plus win player over the last 2 seasons with 70 plus stolen bases. That's Shohei Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, and Bryce Terang. Those are the 3 players. It's pretty good company. And I'm not telling you that Bryce Terang is Shohei Ohtani or Jose Ramirez, but if he just continues to give you that little trickle of power on top of the defense and the base stealing, that's a really freaking good player, and a player that's probably priced himself out of Milwaukee. Probably. To the point where now you probably can't give him an early extension offer or a below market rate. Like, he's probably going to hang out and wait for the full banana. But Bryce Terang with 2 home runs in their preseason game, including a monster grand slam. Jesus Mate also with a couple rips, a couple RBI hits, scalding the ball. I'm just looking at some of these highlights. So again, I don't really care about results. I don't really care about individual performances because that faucet can shut off the day that the actual games begin. We've seen that most notably with Yelich, but I guess secondarily with Vinny Capra, although I think anybody thought that would continue for Vinny Capra last year, but whatever. If you did, you were proven wrong. I also wanted to share for you the story at Bleacher Nation. This is outstanding work from Brett Taylor. So he posted a from spring training of Jacob Mizorowski throwing a pitch, and it looks like he's knocking an apple lined up in a way where the apple's behind him, and he's not throwing directly at his head. Okay. Everyone thought it was cool, thought it was maybe AI did it, blah, blah, blah. Nation, this is Brett Taylor. I love the guy so much, man. The caption is, the Brewers made a fake video, pretended it was real, and I'm irrationally mad about it. You want to hear some of this? Here's the story. Remember last year when the Milwaukee Brewers manager, Pat Murphy, read a letter from recently departed icon Bob Uecker in advance of the Brewers playoff run? Remember how the social media team made it was real when it had actually been written by Murphy himself? Full that was using Uecker and his memory dishonest lout. I love how Jason Klein, I mean, social media team's got to post some stuff. It was a little odd. Maybe the whole thing is why the following makes me so angry. Maybe I'm not being irrational. The Brewers put out a video yesterday with no caveat risks, celebrating a daredevil feat completed by Jacob Mizorowski and Cooper Pratt. Absolutely nuts, right? A William Tell for the modern era, with the Brewers prospect literally risking his life by allowing Mizorowski to fire a fastball just above his head. And it was successful. He hit the apple. Amazing. And then in all caps, he writes, except it was all effing fake, like explicitly fake. And then Adam McCalvy's tweet is embedded here with the video explaining how they did it. They set it up. There's no way. And it's not artificial intelligence either. It was a trick of the trade from the video production team that includes senior manager of digital content, Ezra Siegel, senior videographer and creative lead, Carter Green, and senior editor, Corey Osen, member of the community. Excellent Twitter account, Corey Osen, I believe it's pronounced. Could be wrong. We've been playing around with ideas to reach young baseball fans. And then Brett's commentary continues. Let me get this straight. You intentionally faked a video of someone throwing a rock at another person's head at 104 miles an hour, and your desire was to have young baseball fans see it? Are you freaking kidding me? I love this story so much. Have you met young baseball fans? Do you realize that if they think this is real, which your social media team has presented the video on multiple platforms, those kids will try to do stupid, dangerous stuff like this? And that's literally your goal, all caps. I love kids, but they are terrible. Well, it's good to know Brett loves kids. I love that caveat. I love kids, but they are terrible at evaluating whether something is real and whether something is dangerous. By the way, I would actually argue that in 2026, kids are just as good, if not better, at deciding what is real and telling what is real than adults. No offense to our adult listeners. Media not at an all-time high. I'm just saying. Brett continues. You know what? I take back the word irrational completely. I am justifiably enraged by this. The Brewers deserve to be screamed at for this BS. If you want to make a video problem, but just make sure you people, it's not real. And maybe add that it would be really dangerous and a bad idea to attempt this at home. This guy is freaking bananas, man. I hope he never stops making content. It's so good. I think Brett Taylor, I think he might be, and I guess that's something creates. And Brewers Twitter is, so I appreciate it a lot. I got a text here from a friend about the Brewer game. Brewers win 13-12. Bottom of the ninth, Brewers have runners at the corners, one out. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a spring training game. They end up winning 13-12. Again, I don't really care about results. I did a hit with Brian and Gene, who do Rock Mornings on 95.7 The Rock, and then the X up in Eau Claire. And I do 10, 12 minutes with them on Tuesday mornings, like 8:15. And Simpson asked me, he's like, what are you looking at spring training? Are you following the results of the games, any individual performances? I mean, you want players to play well, don't get me wrong. I've just seen so many times where a player has an awesome spring and then they get to the regular season and they suck. And I think that's as common, maybe even more common than the opposite, where someone has a terrible spring and then they come to the regular season and they're great. It's just a big crapshoot. So individual performances, no. Results of games, certainly least of all. It's fun to watch competitive game. Like, it's entertaining. It's good at baseball, but I'm not going to draw conclusions about it. It is interesting to watch Jesus Mate, who had a good game today. I mean, Bryce Drang hit 2 bombs. That's entertaining. Brewers fans, I'll tell you, just pay attention to Brock Wilken. I know a lot's been made of Cooper Pratt. Clearly, Jesus Mate is a big part of their future, a highly ranked prospect with a sick name, too. But I think Brock Wilken maybe doesn't have the clearest path, but might have the cleanest path and might fill a pressing need more than those other guys. Like Brock Wilken is a third baseman who can hit for power. And right now they don't have a third baseman who can hit for power, unless you believe in like the big stick of Billy Hamilton, maybe. Or you think Renifo has some power in there that's been unable to be accessed by previous teams. I don't know. The Brewers are smart with these things. So I don't doubt that they believe they can get the best out of Billy Hamilton and others. But Brock Wilken, I think maybe more than any of these other guys that we talk about a ton. We don't talk about Brock Wilken as much. I would pay attention to him in spring. I would pay attention to him because I would be less surprised if he makes an appearance at some point than some of the names that we're talking about more. For good reason, like Jesus Mate is exciting and Cooper Pratt and all these guys, of course, we're into that. But Brock Wilken is a guy who, when he's been healthy, and he's been hurt a lot, shout out Matt Gamble, he's kind of provided something that the Brewers could really use, and that's some pop at third base and on the left side of that infield. We're going to take a break. Mike Clemens is going to join us at some point between now and the end of the show, get his thoughts on some of the players, the media availabilities he heard. Also, Gary Woelfel's here and had a scoop about Romeo Dobbs that I want to talk about coming up next because I've seen people tweeting about that. I think that should be addressed. So we'll get to that as well. The Wisco Sports Show continues. We're live here at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Starting to wind down the show. Doesn't mean we don't have anything left to talk about. Mike Clemens is going to join us momentarily. He's been up in the media workspace. It's been a very exciting day, thrilling day, even at the 2026 NFL Combine. The place is mostly emptied out. I think Mike and I are going to walk around the corner, get some dinner, use some steak. That's what you do at the Combine, right? Appreciate all the texts coming in. Reader in Madtown says, the thing you're missing, Grant, is the Miz video is real. Signed to every single elderly person who uses Facebook. So here's the thing. I was reading that Bleacher Nation story from, it's not a story. It's just it's a blog, respectfully. Blogs are good. Complaining about that Brewers video, saying that it's unsafe and, this, that, the other thing. Like you're promoting kids to do this. Kids don't know what's real and what's not. I'm like, I think kids are just as good at knowing what's real and what's not real as adults these days. Again, media literacy is not exactly at an all-time high. Respectfully, I say, which AI has gotten very good. So I'm not even judging. I'm just saying, don't make this a kid's problem. So a lot went down at the Combine today, including Mason Reiger and all the defensive linemen, certain other players speaking with the media earlier today. We also have a Romeo Dobbs thing that I want to discuss. Mike Clemens is here, courtesy the Bay Motel in Green Bay. We're not staying at the Bay Motel in Green Bay this week. Do you wish we were?
360 days a year sometimes just to cover Packers stuff between that and the office that we got, little media office at the stadium and back to headquarters in Milwaukee. So.
All right. What jumped out to you as you listened to players speak? We listened to Mason Reiger, former Badger today. You were over on that side as players are speaking and you're bumping shoulders with people who cover the league and are hearing things, rumors, and, innuendos from agents and certain teams. So what were some of your big takeaways from today's events?
Is his name Zito Young? Zion Young from Missouri. From Mizzou.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that kid.
What about him? You just listen to him speak?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got some game to him.
Okay.
And I was also talking to a couple of guys that kind of do scouting for the league as well. I said, tell me about him. Oh, yeah, no, and Mizzou. And they've turned out some great players. And they're same school this time last year. The last year's rookie receiver for the Chicago Bears, Luther
Burden. Yep.
Yeah.
Mizzou
same
guy.
thing.
Yep.
Oh man, that guy sounds like Frank Gore used to.
Yeah.
The legendary 49ers running back. So that's just kind of a feel thing, but that's what you get to do when they're all pretty good players. They're the top 319 players in college football that are here. They got a shot at getting drafted. but then you start listening to the personality come through, and a lot of times that's not just sales stuff. They're confident.
Yeah.
And then you start looking them up on tape. Now, of course, it's the other way around for these full-time NFL scouts that, look at tape. Then okay, I'll get on the plane. I'll go talk to this kid.
Yeah. So they have a good background of all these kids. And then after talking with some of these kids, then they probably go watch more tape. They're like, I got to circle back and look at more of that guy, maybe try to find something that I missed previously. So how many combines do you think you've been to? How many combines have you covered, Mike?
20, 21.
Is there a memory, a conversation that you've had at the combine or at a bar? Is there one thing that you remember is, I remember when I heard that at the combine and it turned out to be true, or the best scoop or the best moment that you've ever had at this event? Because everybody's always talking. There's always information flying around.
There was a guy in 05 or 06, Maurice. He was a running back for Ohio State.
Maurice Jones-Drew?
No. Maurice. All I just know is that when he showed up, he had been accused of armed robbery or something like that.
Maurice Claret?
Yes, Claret.
Bill would have known that right away.
Yeah,
that rings a bell.
And I was like, okay, I guess I don't have that much time to watch college football on Saturdays because usually on a plane chasing the Packers someplace. But it's like everyone's like, oh, this kid, boy, he could come around, and he was, it was flame out. But boy, and I was thinking about that today. What has happened? Because we've had some of these combines where a kid comes in and there's this big feel of a scandal and controversy. Carter from the Eagles might be the last one. That doesn't mean it has to be actual tragedies, but, weird stuff going on. And I don't know if it's got to do with a depletion of media.
Okay.
Or the fact is the money is so big now. And, the grooming goes, starting through like junior high and high school.
Yeah.
It's just you're not going to get accepted. There's agents that are there to train guys and high school coaches, and even the coaches too. It's not like you're going to find mental illness can strike at any time. But it's been a while since we had the assistant coach who went through the drive-through naked, and drunk, to get a bag of fries.
Oh yeah.
We're missing those kinds of stories these days.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're probably right. There's too much money on the line for these players that they have an agent.
Coaches too.
And the coaches.
You got coordinators making $6 million a year.
There's too much money for a scandal or a story like that. But no doubt there used to be stories like that where you probably all rolled into the combine. And you're like, I can't wait to get to the bottom of this.
Right.
I can't wait to hear from this kid.
Well, the other thing is, and then the rumors were bigger. Those are the confirmed stories. The rumors are the ones you get in the bars, which we'll get in a couple hours from now. But, you used to hear those kinds of stories. So I just, the whole operation is, even from the 42-year-old GMs and their computer skills and everyone that's associated with the league, it's not, good old boys that have been out in the sun too much anymore.
Yeah.
It's these, highly trained, been doing this, and some of these GMs, they've been setting up boards since they were 17.
Yeah. Well, John Schneider, how long had he been doing it? How old was he when he started in Green Bay?
He got in when he's about 22 or so.
Yeah.
But
which is a kid.
Yeah.
Relatively.
But around 2006.
Okay.
Good source of mine. Used to work for the team.
Okay.
Like I say, you talk to these people after they're no longer with the organization. Give it a little time. You get the better stories.
Whatever happened there?
Yeah. And he said, this is after, the Seahawks had established themselves with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom and all that.
They were a legit stable thing. Yeah.
So I'm talking to this bud, and he said, I was working at the office late, like a lot of people do at 12:65, for the Green Bay Packers, maybe 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Like most of the guys had gotten out, but I'm walking past, and there's John Schneider, 34, 35 years old, wife and some kids. I don't know if he was up to vice president yet or whatever, but still working there in Green Bay in that office, grinding through film in the dark room like, Ted Thompson used to talk about. And he says, all right, I'm leaving, you'll be the last one out. He goes, okay. He says, what are you doing? Well, this is it, man.
Yeah, look at
going through
players.
tape.
Yeah.
He said, you want to come in? And this guy was single at the time, and he's like, yeah, why not? They sat down there till 10 o'clock at night, and they went through quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Every play, twice. Back it up, slow it down. And then John would say, he'd just take it from the feet up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at that placement of the foot. There's where the plant. Look at where the hips are. Here comes the torque. And every play. And then he sits there and he writes it down. Grinding.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do this.
Mm-hmm.
Every play twice. And they did that for another 3.5 hours till he could get through his 100 quarterbacks that night.
So there's been a rise of analytics, which can mean a lot of different things, right? But really smart people who use data, who use AI, Sumer Sports, they've told us about all of this great AI modeling that they use as a tool. Do you still feel that even after all of the, different perspectives and different technologies have entered, that thing still exists, that old school, you learned by learning from the old scout who learned from, the scout before them, that thing still exists, that there's still a magic of the football guy in a dark room watching tape?
Well, that's a good question, because if we're calling balls and strikes, with computers, we're there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've got software for NFL scouts in the AI world yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not far behind, or they're working on it. But no, you still have to do that, and you still have to grade that, and you have to, you have to have that trust, before you put that down on the board. Goodikins talked though about, he says, I'm a scout. I have to see it.
Yep.
So, the office is full of about 8 or 9, as they call them, evaluators.
Okay.
And then Lord knows, and it's kind of, I always am trying to do a head count of actually where the scouts are, how many of them that they have. And the other thing is, there's now these agencies that they just don't talk about, but that maybe they share with other teams over in the AFC or whatever that have clients. Like, yeah, we'll do the junior colleges for you. We'll get the preliminaries for you before your guy that does the Southeast has to spend time on a plane and rent the car and go see this stuff in person or interview. So there's that pyramid to cover that.
It's a fraternity.
But he said, that the scouts are bringing that information. Then it gets to the next tier of the evaluators. Then it goes up to the GM. But he said, I'm looking at the tape.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the tape. I want to see the interviews. The other thing that's changed, and you asked me this the other day off the air, we were talking about the lack of coaches. Like, where's Andy Reid?
Uh-huh.
Where's Andy Reid?
Well, and it struck me too. This is my first combine, right? And I knew that Matt LaFleur wasn't going to be here. The Packers coach says, well, we can get more work done at home. I've heard this for years because we play this audio on Bill's show, even when I haven't been here with you, or even when Bill hasn't been here. But now I'm here and I see, Ben Johnson's here doing the Mike McDonald is here doing the rounds. Robert Saleh, just to name a few.
Todd Bowles was over here
just chopping it up. I could have gone up and he probably wouldn't have wanted to talk to me or listen to me.
Right.
But he wasn't in some gated area. He was just making the rounds. And even certain general managers too. I was at the bar last night. Brad Holmes was next to me.
Yeah.
Just ordering a drink, and I don't gather that, I don't know that the Packers
and that
are
was at the
operating
team
the same
hotel
way.
where the
It
team
was.
stayed, NFL hotel.
So maybe, look, I'm becoming a jaded member of the media here, where why is my team, the access is terrible. They don't care about us. But it has been something that I've noticed, the accessibility and the connectivity of a lot of other franchises relative to the way that the Packers have handled this thing.
Well, all I know is that 20 years ago, you'd come down here and Ted would be here with all those guys would be here. And, you would, watch tape, and this stuff wasn't during the day in terms of the workouts. And we had a lot more access too. I mean, they had the weightlifting right there in front of us.
Yeah.
And ESPN made this a bigger show that, that was getting lots of ratings. And there was Chris Berman and, some big personalities. Guys that were making back then 20 years ago, $7 million a year to anchor this stuff. It was a big show. And they were building into it and trying to build ratings into it, et cetera. I don't know about those ratings, if they've tapered off, and this is a show. This is all entertainment. This is part of it, but the evaluation. But going back, 40, 50 years ago, the idea was, let's save money instead of going to all these, regional combines, fly them all in. And today, these guys, they got 300 guys through, or not 300, but a sizable chunk through their physicals this morning.
Yep.
And they go through that change.
And they shoot for people who, they do the medicals, they bring them through here, and then upstairs they have all the rooms where the cameras are set up, so they're shooting all the promotional video, of them in front of a backdrop for when they get drafted. Like it's a big car wash that these guys go through.
So Ted and his guys, Schneider and Goodikins and all these
McKenzie, Dorsey,
and Wolf, all this, they would sit in these little rooms and they'd bring the kid in, they'd get 15 minutes and they'd grill them and they'd all answer questions. And Mike Sherman might be in the room, or Mike McCarthy might be in there in the room too, or the coordinator. So they would get those questions in. But early on, Ted said, get this on tape. Because, when you do 16 interviews, they're all going to blend together. Of
course.
So then, there's other developments, there's pro days, there's other things that you considerations, free agency, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, okay, now we're getting down to the draft and we really got to make some of these decisions. Go back to that tape. What did that kid say about this? Go track down that storyline. And that's the way it was done. So the Packers were early on doing that. The COVID changed a lot of that. Nobody came here, 1 year, and a lot of stuff was done over Zoom. And then the coaches are like, scouting, you guys have got this down.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got a lot of other stuff I could be solving right now. So just give me the clips, give me the highlights.
I bet.
Give me the red flags, and then we can discuss this from here on in. And I'll trust you guys to take that through. And these coaches that they work 6.5 days, a year, and then the season, the hours are ridiculous. I mean, they just are. It's so competitive, and it's all in their blood. That's kind of the way they want to run it anyway. That's what happens during the season. So they just think, what, we can still be good, we can still be efficient, and we don't have to be there in person. Here's the other thing too. Like I started out in terms of the secrecy of this operation, as the dollars get, when you're paying $55 million for quarterbacks, these people do not want your quality assistant control coach from offense saying, LaFleur's kind of a jerk when it comes to this. They don't want that. They do not want to run into you or overhear you at the bar at the NFL hotel. They put the kibosh and all that. They do not want people talking and networking to other people.
What does Bill say? Red China? Just that's what I thought of. I'm not confirming or denying. Just what I thought of.
It's CIA, man.
All right, I got to take one final break. We'll wrap up a couple minutes with Mike Clemens on the other side. We're here at the Combine. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, last couple of minutes here. We're at the scouting combine. Mike Clemens is here. We're about to go have a steak, which I am very excited for. Mike, we had a bit of an adventure last night. Bill wanted to take us to Skyline, Cincinnati guy. I'd never been. And he told me in the middle of the day, Greg Cosell might join us. I invited him. And I said, what? Sure. All of a sudden, Bill picks us up. Greg Cosell's in the car. This guy's a legend. He's been at NFL Films forever. And we're at Skyline Chili. And Bill is explaining wet, dry, three-way, four-way. It's not a very, the wording of it does not make it sound appetizing. What a night.
Well, first of all, and I was thinking about this for you and for, 20-something listeners, et cetera. I don't know if you guys really appreciate how big Howard Cosell was.
Mm-hmm.
Greg is a nephew of Howard, but I can't compare. All I could say is Stephen A. Smith times 10.
Yeah.
And, Howard had a sharp, blunt edge, and he was right about a lot of things and covered epic, historic developments in sports between the launch of Monday Night Football, Ali, Foreman, Joe Frazier kinds of fights, contracts, lazy owners. I mean, he told it like it was. There's also a great Billy Crystal interview that we haven't got time for. That look up Billy Crystal's story about Cosell. I think that was on the Late Show with Colbert.
Sure.
That Cosell was nuts. Like he was a crying baby guy back in the green room.
I'm sure.
And on the set he was a nut job on the old Tonight Show. Greg is nothing like that, except he's a grinder. And he told us last night of his story about, he's a bit of a high school athlete, got a job, the back door by Ed Sable, actually called him the father of NFL Films that starts back in the 60s, and how he's worked for them going through that film. And you got to see that matchup show that's on ESPN overnights on Saturday nights. We got to spend the night with him. And he enjoyed the chili.
He enjoyed, and that was the whole point, is he enjoyed Skyline. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. Let's go have a steak. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, Mike Clemens, appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow at the Combine. Talk to you then. Thanks for listening.